Jimmy's All Problem segment tonight. Many Americans continue to despise we in the media.
We are in a rigged system, and a big part of the rigging are these dishonest people in the media.
Welcome back. I'm Brooke Baldwin, and you're watching the loose collection of daytime nonsense we call the CNN Newsroom.
People get very frustrated and distrustful of the media based on what the media does not cover.
Right now, Donald Trump's supporters are booing the mainstream media as they came into the arena. This is amazing. Look at that. They are so mad.
There's something that has changed from Cronkite and Howard K. Smith and Brinkley and Huntley and these guys who were almost revered by the population back in the 50s and 60s, and now we're loathed. What happened?
TV used to be one of the most credible mediums.
But now, recent attacks have people questioning their news sources' credibility.
Media is defined as the means of communication as radio and television, newspapers, and the internet that reach or influence people widely.
Hi, I'm Cindy Kessler, and I'm the weekend producer here at WSIL.
And I'm Zach Barrett, and I'm the executive producer over at River Region Evening Edition.
And while we both may have almost the exact same job title, we definitely don't do the same things.
Yeah, most people think as executive producer that I just write stories.
And some people even think that I just run camera. But what we realize is that no one has the same definition for this job.
We talked to a lot of different people around the newsroom to see what they thought a producer did.
The producer has many roles, but the most important is to build and execute a newscast from start to finish.
So they just have to wear a lot of hats and then just understand that they're underappreciated for what they have to do.
Stacking the rundown, choosing stories.
Main role of the producer is to be the eyes and ears for the public.
Placing stories, writing stories.
I mean, all you can really do is report the truth as accurately as you can.
Updating stories.
You know, a good producer kind of has a feel for what people care about and what's important.
When the newscast starts, making sure all those stories go to air in the best and most effective way.
Kind of the captain of that particular ship.
So Sydney, are we overinflating the role of the producer and how big media actually influences society?
Zach, honestly, I really don't think so. I think that as our job, we are intended to represent society, not just reflect it.
So, in saying that, how much do people actually trust what we have to say?
I believe it's biased, but I wouldn't say it's untrustworthy. I think you get a lot of valuable information from the media, but you should look up facts on your own as well.
I do think some sides are biased. They lean more towards certain subjects, certain people in a way.
Do you think companies that are owned by different people who have their own biases, and they're supposed to be non-biased, but you can obviously see where they're reporting some things and not reporting others.
Okay. The people that work in the media say no, it's not there, but I do see it not on the local level, but on the national level.
We all have a point of view. We all have our own beliefs. You know, no one is, I don't think anyone is objective in the sense that they're a blank slate. You know, even the stories that I find interesting, I find them interesting because of who I am. And I make assignments. Or I don't make assignments anymore, but when I was an editor, I made assignments based on what I thought was interesting, which is, I mean, that's bias right there.
So who are these media giants who control everything that we see, hear, and read? Well, first there's Comcast, who owns NBC, Universal, and Telemundo.
Next, there's Walt Disney, who owns ESPN, Pixar, Lifetime, and the History Channel.
And there's also Viacom, the parent company, who owns MTV, BET, and Paramount.
And then there's CBS and all of their affiliates, including the CW.
Next up is News Corp, who owns Fox News, The Wall Street Journal, and The New York Post.
And finally, there's Time Warner. The owner is CNN, TBS, Warner Brothers, HBO, and many, many more.
So we decided to ask people if they thought these ownerships encouraged news biases.
Yeah, I mean, just we're ABC affiliates, so everybody thinks, oh, you're that liberal, network. Well, we're not necessarily liberal in our approach. I mean, we may have our own individual thoughts on how things are, but that doesn't necessarily mean that our coverage is reflective of that.
The networks, the true networks, still try to stay fairly in the middle. Your ABC, your CBS, I think they try to still stay down the middle, but I mean, you've got your outliers.
CNN, ABC, NBC, those are, to me are the media.
If you look at all the major networks, they're all located in New York. Even CNN has got New York headquarters. And so I think even though they may have correspondents throughout the country, all their people who are making the decisions are based in one cluster. And so I think as a result, they don't have a true read of what's going on. So.
In class, we discussed news agencies and how they can differentiate each newscast from their own. And I think that news agencies really come into play here because every single station gets AP wires. And when you get that, it is only a set amount of information. Just because it's coming from the AP wires doesn't mean that it's looked at by a lot of people or that it's approved by a lot of people. It is still usually just written by one person who has gone to the story and still puts their own personal spin on it. What can become a lot of issues is when you have all of these news stations that are taking this one story, this one viewpoint, and basing their entire news report around it, and they're not looking anywhere else but the news agencies. And that's when you come into a lot of problems with biases and really not telling the full story and the trust issues that a lot of people talk about.
But as we said earlier, although Zach and I have relatively the same title,
WSIL TV3,
we have very different jobs. And that's mainly because of the type of stations we work at.
Here at River Region, we're a public broadcasting service, which means that we are not run by ads and we do not get any money from advertising, which means it gives students an opportunity to hone their craft and really learn the news business so that when they go into the commercial industry, they'll be ready.
Take it.
So the main differences between Channel 3 and River Region are River Region is a laboratory and Channel 3 is where you ultimately, ideally want to end up.
No matter the differences, at the end of the day, each producer needs to decide what stories make the cut.
1 minute left.
What is newsworthy?
How do you decide what is news and what is not?
Well, let me think about that because it's like, well, it's obvious. But how do I explain it?
I think it's inevitable that, story selection and placement will change with every person based on their beliefs and based on, what they deem as more newsworthy. And I think it's human nature to let your opinions and your thoughts bleed in, but you have to try to, cut that off as much as possible.
It's kind of the duty of TV, radio, and print news to get those other opinions out there that people may not receive otherwise.
I think as long as you report on both sides and don't show one negative side, one positive side of the other, or vice versa, show the negative side of both sides, even if you lean more towards one, show the negativity of that one too.
Even with no definite definition of what is or isn't newsworthy, a producer is expected to get it right. Recent battles this political season between news stations and politicians shows just how crucial these decisions are.
And he stood up and started ranting and raving like a madman. He was totally, absolutely out of line.
It's always been really easy to blame the media when you don't like what they're writing about.
I mean, that's one of the greatest values of a free and independent news media in a democracy. I mean, people get furious with the news media when they say things about a politician they like, but that's the role of the news media, is to, not pick a party, but to look with a critical eye at national, state, and local politics and what's going on. It's our job to look under the rug, all of the rugs.
And our job is, I think, even more important now than it ever has been. And there are fewer of us left to do it, which is sad.
Dope. Dope. Do you have anything to add about the news industry that a lot of people don't realize?
We're really nice people.